So what we'll do, just to do a stripe, is kind of eyeball where the get about 1/8 of an inch. Most of it is eyeball. You can actually measure it with take a tape measure and measure everything out if you like. But I'm used to doing things by eye, so. I'm gauging the spacing behind the tape based on when I rub the tape. It actually gives me a surface line. I don't know if you can see that. See, you can kind of gauge it by that. Whenever you're doing paint scheme, it's in reverse. So we're going to have a request for a thin strip. So we're going to do a thin strip. It'll actually be a thin green strip in between the orange strips, which will differentiate between the two. Could also make it look like OSHA safety stripes if you want to. A lot of it's real popular, say with like aliens type stuff. Say if you were to do like a power loader type of a thing. And because there's a hole there, I'm going to stuff a little paper behind it so that it doesn't get all over my. All right. And now, because the orange is not going to cover very well over this, but what we want to do is make sure that the rest of it's protected. So we're going to tape off the sides. And you can just slide it underneath the tape, like so. It's just a shield. Because I really don't want the orange going any place other than where I want it to go. Because the orange is a lighter color, we're going to use a lighter primer than the black. Black's fine for darker colors, but since we want it to lighten up, we're going to hit it real light with a little bit of gray, which will change the color of the orange a little bit. If you want to keep the color pure, then we use white. You can use white primer. So here's the orange that I had chosen. It's kind of a industrial orange. Now, if you wanted like an antique effect or a crackle effect, what you do is you put your paint over the primer when it's still wet. Or you can put two different kinds of paint. Or you can put a water on top of an oil and it'll crack and separate. Or if you want that crackle effect, which you really don't want on this. Probably take a couple coats to get the desired effect. So we paint it, flash it. Spray it again. And you don't want to get too thick because then the paint won't peel off. I mean, the tape won't peel off. It'll actually bond to the tape. And you want to pull your tape off when it's just about almost all the way dry. If you pull it off too late, it'll crack and pull stuff with it. If you pull it off too early, it might smear. So hopefully, if everything goes right, this should pull off real nice and clean. A little heavy, but whoa, that turned out kind of ugly. We're going to age it out. So if I mess with it now, it's going to smear. So I don't want to do that. But what I do want to do is start accenting some of the details. So what we can do is just with simple taping, we can give it some varying effects on certain areas. See, like this area here. I want to accent that a little bit more, so what I'm going to do is tape that off. And we'll use some of the similar colors that we used in the rest of the gun, like the gunmetal. So I'm gonna use the, let's see, that's the light gunmetal. We're gonna dust it with the dark gunmetal. Just a light dusting. And the same thing on this side. So I just want to don't worry about screwing up because you can always make adjustments. Say like that. I got a little bit over, but it's not a big deal. So I'm not going to like stress about it. So I can just take this off. This is called spaceship paneling. There's actually a word for it that we use. Let's take this guy off. It's gotten tighter since we put the paint on there. Alright, so this just looks kind of bland here. I want to kind of jazz this up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is Just a slight change in tonality there. So what I can do is use a little black also. So I'm going to use some black primer and just dust that area. But I don't want it to get on that, so I'm going to release it. And probably want to do the same thing to the other side. As you can see, already has a detail there. So doesn't take much to just do a very simple tonal change. Just a little differentiation between the different areas. I'm almost ready to neutralize it. What I'm going to do is spray the whole thing down with a matte spray, which will allow I call it the grunge. It's grunge basically. It's just aging. Comes in brown, like a dark brown, usually works. Now this is satin, but you can use flat. Usually works the best. Just basically gives it a surface for the grunge to stick to. Now also this little piece of paper, anything that's paper will probably absorb the grunge a lot more. So what you want to do is kind of seal that, protect it from the water in it. All right, so it's still kind of loud, okay? So what we're going to do is knock the thing down and distress it, okay? So how we do that is with our grunge, which is basically a little bit of white paint and added with water, and you thin it out so it's like a wash. It's very, very thin, all right? But what you want to do is you have your regular water here, you got your grunge here, and it'll be interesting to see how the paper reacts to this, because it's mostly water, because everything else is enamel and other materials. So what we want to do is we just want to kind of spritz it. It looks like I'm messing it up, but actually what I'm doing is giving it more depth. See, if it beads up, it's not gathering properly. But what we want to kind of do is just dab off a little bit. Let it sit in the low spots. Now, if you want it to run, say like if you're doing antiquing on like a building or something like that, you can actually add a little bit of water to it, and just hit it with the water like this. Just kind of, and what it'll do is it'll start it in running. And you just kind of dress it so it looks a little old, not so much older, but just looks like it's been used. Now, if you let it dry, it'll dry transparent, so it'll have the you'll know that it's there, but you won't actually be able to see it. It's the little imperfections that give it more of a feeling of reality. And you can also do is once it's all dry and you got the tones where you want it, you can seal the whole thing up with like a matte or a semi-gloss. You just kind of dab it here and there. Also brings out the surface details a little bit more.